Because what I've learned in 16 years of meditation is that the world is not going to operate around what I want. And just because it's not operating around what I want doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not what I wanted.
The following podcast is a Healthy Dog production. Welcome to the Healthy Dog Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nigma Talib. I'm a leading naturopathic doctor now for over 20 years, and I've consulted thousands of patients with chronic illnesses. I've had clinics all over the world, and I have a #1 bestseller, Younger Skin Starts in the Gut. Listen, I know there's a lot of health information out there in the health and wellness world, and it can be a bit overwhelming. So I'm here to set the record straight and give you my expertise along with my expert guests here in studio in sunny Los Angeles.
I only take drugs with other people who take them on a regular basis because I don't have time for that.
A lot of chronic diseases stem from mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yes. And you know what I love talking about, right? Poop.
Yes. You can ask me about my poop?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about poop.
Okay, please.
This podcast is your go-to for achieving optimal wellness from the best of beauty and longevity and everything in between, because after all, wellness comes from the inside out. Welcome back to the Healthy Dog Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nigma Talib. Today's guest is a meditation teacher, speaker, and executive mind coach, the author of Don't Hate, Meditate. She was trained by Deepak Chopra and has spent over a decade teaching meditation to everyone from Fortune 500 companies to people simply looking for a little bit more calm in their everyday lives. She's passionate about making meditation accessible and debunking some of the myths that keep people from practicing, like myself, and showing the mindfulness can help us navigate life's ever so uncertain moments. I really want to welcome today to the podcast my really dear friend, Megan Monahan. Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Megan, the world needs you right now.
Oh my gosh.
We are living in such, including Dante.
I know Dante is fully like, thank you so much for being here, Megan. Let's start meditating immediately.
I'm telling you, he meditates every morning. He goes out in the morning and sticks his nose in the sun and twinkles his nose and just sits there for like 15 minutes.
Animals don't have any resistance to being present and to navigating the present moment and whatever stress they might be experiencing. We have all of these kind of mechanisms within us to navigate stress in a really appropriate, healthy way. And animals don't have anything to get in the way of that. Humans do. Which is why we're all
interesting, isn't
running
it?
around feeling anxious and overwhelmed and, terrified of uncertainty.
Yes, which is the world we're living in right now.
Yeah,
I feel like, obviously we're super privileged. We're not in a war-torn zone, or we're not, but we're watching everything happen in front of our eyes. We're exposed to so much more than, we were even 10 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And how that can really impact our health. As a doctor, I can tell you, I've never seen so many patients with adrenal burnout and cortisol imbalance and hormone imbalance.
Yeah.
It's a record-breaking time out of 20 years of doing this.
Yeah.
So we need people like you. And, we need to learn about what can we do during this time?
Yeah.
You wrote this incredible book, which I read, and I actually I know you gave me a few copies and I bought a few online, but I give them out as gifts because anytime I speak to a friend who's undergoing any kind of stress, I'm saying, are you meditating?
Yeah.
And, I grew up meditating. So for me, it's part of my culture, it's part of who I am.
Which is so incredible that it's already embedded in how your nervous system and how you just, from a tools-based perspective, what you have access to. We should all be so lucky.
But the problem with that is that I'm too comfortable with not doing it sometimes. And last night was the time that I really needed to do it and I didn't do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have Megan coming on the podcast tomorrow and I forgot to meditate. But we're going to get into some of the chapters of your book because I think it really does add value. What should people do right now that, are feeling super uncertain, feeling stressed by social media? Walk us through how meditation can completely change that.
Yeah. I think the tendency, to your point, when we start to feel overwhelmed, when we start to get a lot of anxiety, when we start to have physical symptoms of stress, I think it's really natural to want to look outside and see what we can fix and be like, oh, maybe if I'm not in this relationship, or maybe if my job changes, or maybe if this feels different, or maybe if my family has better boundaries, and maybe if I start, maybe, right? All these external kind of shifts. And while absolutely changing your environment, changing the nature of your relationships can help that, ultimately, if you don't have a connection within yourself to an inner world that feels grounded and safe, and really, like I always say, like a safe harbor that you can surrender into, you're always going to have a really anxious attachment to everything around you. Because the moment that, let's say, you get everything dialed in externally, you're like, everything's great, I feel great, everything is moving the way that I want it to so that I feel really good, something else might happen, something else unexpected in your immediate world, in this external world that we all share, and then all of a sudden you're off balance again. So the answer really is, first and foremost, how can you develop a deeper, safer, more grounded connection with yourself and really shift your nervous system, your mindset to be one of surrender and presence within yourself first, and recognize that who you are is not defined by the roles that you play. It's not defined by even all these thoughts in your mind or these very temporary feelings. You first and foremost are this kind of sacred observer to it all. And once you can have that duality where you know that that is a part of you and where you have that safe harbor within yourself, then you can look around and make adjustments. And when that external world is not kind of operating to meet your specific standards, it feels a lot less threatening, right? Because what I've learned in 16 years of meditation is that the world is not going to operate around what I want. And just because it's not operating around what I want doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not what I wanted, right? So like really shifting that paradigm to be more grounded within yourself first.
And so how do we start? How do we start with, if somebody's listening right now and they're like, I'm anxious every day. I feel, I'm addicted to social media. It's the first thing I do when I wake up, and it's the first thing I do when I go to bed.
Yeah.
How do we shift that person? Because social media is like a slot machine.
Yeah.
It's addictive.
It really is. Well, it's programmed to be.
It's programmed to be. And so how can we get, meditation to be their medication or their new addiction?
Yeah.
Because I think it's a good addiction.
It's a much better addiction than many other options out there.
Yeah. What is one thing we could do to really get somebody just even starting it?
I think it's really powerful, and this might be controversial because it's not the most heart-centered maybe thing, but I think it's really powerful as a motivator to be really clear on where the pain point is, right? We as humans pay attention to where things are wrong, right? When we're having the best day ever, we don't stop and reflect on life and who am I really and what am I doing that's working. We just enjoy the best day ever. It's when we have a pain point, when there's an imbalance that's causing enough pain, a symptom, whether that's anxiety, whether that's I feel sick. When I first started meditating, it wasn't because I woke up one day and thought to myself, I just want to know myself better. And I just want to feel more connected to who I really am and what my purpose is. I want to be even more grateful. It was because I had to get my gallbladder taken out from stress in my early 20s. It was because I had chronic hives for a year. And I didn't really want to start going on Xanax and other pharmaceuticals to just fix that symptom. That's why I started meditating. And so a really powerful motivator is often the thing that's not working. And so I always say for people, the way that you will start this practice, because it is something new, it is very, passive. I'm the first to admit that meditation can feel really boring, and it can feel like you're sitting and doing nothing, even though that's not true. And even though there are so many benefits happening all the time from it. And when you're meditating, of course, the mind is like, hey, we don't have time to be doing nothing. There's so much to do, right? Even though stopping, this, so much, you do so much, and you have so many things that are kind of moving in your life. The moment that you stop and take a break, the moment that you re-enter is when you're the most productive, when you're most in that flow state. But that can feel really counterintuitive. So finding a reason that really connects to a pain point that you're having that you care about is, I always think, a really good motivator. And the beautiful thing about meditation, I always say it's kind of like an adaptogen herb, right? So that class of herbs that you know all too well that just really beautifully can read your body and figure out if you need to be like up a little or down a little bit, or right, you get more or less of something. That's really what meditation does. So it helps with everything all the time.
It fine tunes.
But it really can just, it will show up wherever you need it to show up, whether that's, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, right? It will be there and meet you wherever you are. But I always think it's powerful to have a really material, tangible reason that you care about, and find a reason that you actually care about. Because if you're just doing it because I'm saying that you should meditate, you're not going to care and you're not going to do it, right? So find the thing that if you care about having less wrinkles, like meditate for anti-aging because it helps with that, right?
Absolutely.
I'm sitting here with no Botox, with no filler, with nothing ever done to my skin at 41, right? Because of meditation.
And time lift.
Well, obviously, and the time lift. We can have a whole other episode of that. We could literally disrupt the anti-aging industry with some daily meditation and some time lift treatments. And
you'll be done.
We would literally disrupt all of the things.
No, I love that because we know that meditation balances cortisol.
Yeah.
And an imbalanced cortisol causes premature aging.
Yeah.
So it only makes sense.
They've also done a really cool study. I was working for Deepak Chopra when they did this study with Elizabeth Blackburn. I think it was out of UCSF. And they measured the length of telomeres, which are essentially, think of like the end of your shoelace. Exactly.
Yes.
The little cap at the end of the shoelace, best metaphor, that prevents the shoelace from fraying. That's really what telomeres are, basically. A more medically appropriate way to talk about the kind of gooey substance at the end of your chromosomes. And as you age, those telomeres get shorter and you have faster cellular death where you have breakdown and wrinkles. And when you meditate, what they found is that it increases the length of those telomeres by, I think it's 33%, which is a lot.
It's incredible.
So if you are like, okay, I'll meditate because I want to look better and it's cheaper than Botox, that's your reason.
Yes.
And do it every day. If you're doing it for stress and for cortisol, that's your reason. If you're doing it because you want to connect with your dharma and your purpose for being on this planet, that's your reason and you'll do it. And that reason can also change and adapt and evolve with you. I started meditating because I wanted to keep all of my other non-vital organs, and it turned into, this is my purpose and I care, right? So I think that's one of the biggest tips that I have is like, find the reason that you authentically care about.
What was it like working with Deepak Chopra?
I mean, it's amazing. I had the most incredible sort of accidental entrance into this world and was surrounded by the greatest spiritual minds on the planet, right? Whether it's Deepak Chopra or, his co-founder, Dr. David Simon, David G., Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson, Byron Katie. I mean, the list goes on and on. The people that I was exposed to as my education, just because I was kind of brave enough to leave my job in the music industry and surrender into complete uncertainty and follow the synchronicities that led me to working at the Chopra Center, at the very beginning of my career and becoming a teacher, underneath him. But it's an incredible, again, privilege that I've had to be so close to the best of the best.
He is really fascinating. I met him at the Business of Beauty event when I was a speaker. And he sat there and listened to my talk. And after I came out, and he's like, that was very well done. And I was just like, that's Deepak Chopra. Like, what the? He's a super cool guy. And it must have been so incredible. And you must have learned so much. What are you finding now? Like, how have you evolved into teaching now that you're, you were under him as a teacher? How are you using that in your practice to help other people?
I think what I'm so grateful. I've done more than 10,000 hours of this, working with him, working with people. A lot. It's a lot. I've been doing this for 16 years. This November is my 16 years of this work. And what I'm really grateful for is being surrounded by such greatness has really given me space to, especially in those first kind of formative years, really find my authentic voice as a teacher and my translation of these teachings, right? So instead of just parroting things from books, right, I've really had the time to learn and experience my translation of all of this work and have my own original thoughts and insights about it. And that's really what I am so passionate about sharing. Because I think, especially right now, there's a lot of there's always the kind of deep esoteric wisdom that you can get in like books and lectures and things that you go to. And there is just a plethora of more surface level, 90-second topics and things around spirituality that are discussed on TikTok and Instagram. But what I think is kind of missing are access points to that bridge between. Because I think esoteric wisdom needs to be accessible and relevant and entertaining to learn.
What does that mean? Let's start with esoteric wisdom.
So esoteric, ancient, right? So ancient wisdom. So if you look at, ancient texts, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, right? They're incredible, and there are incredible lessons to be learned. And yet, if you're reading that and you're someone that's picking up meditation for the first time in 2025, I don't think you're going to read it and necessarily think to yourself, that sounds like my life. I totally see myself in this text, right? I think there's a lot of power in creating real accessibility to the teachings that have been around for thousands of years for a reason. But how does that apply to, someone who's navigating a divorce all of a sudden in midlife, or someone, who's trying to figure out what they should do with their career, or someone who's trying to figure out if they want to have children? Like, how do you bridge, right? The timeless wisdom that's timeless for a reason, but make it relatable and accessible for people so they can actually incorporate it and integrate it into their life. And so I really love being that bridge because I've done so much work and study in all of this wisdom. I really like, bringing my unapologetic New Yorker, used to work in the music industry. Let's bring in a little lightness. Let's bring in a little humor while also having deep reverence for, teachings and practices. So I'm really passionate about doing that. And that's why I wrote that book.
I want to share something that could literally slow down how you age, inside and out. Let's talk about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBOT. You've probably heard of it being used for athletes or wound healing, but what you may not know is the latest research is showing powerful benefits for cellular regeneration, brain health, and even reversing some biological markers of aging. Hyperbaric chamber works where you breathe in oxygen at higher than normal pressure. This process stimulates your tissues with oxygen and beyond what your body can normally get in. That extra oxygen jumpstarts your cells, helps natural repair processes, reduces inflammation, and boosts collagen production. It even stimulates the growth of new blood vessels. Studies have shown improvements in telomere length, which are kind of like protective caps on your DNA that shorten as you age. Longer telomeres, that's linked to healthier aging. If you're feeling the effects of aging, maybe it's slower recovery, brain fog, or skin that's lost its luster and glow, hyperbaric oxygen might be a powerful tool to help you feel sharper, stronger, and more vibrant. Go to oxyhealth.com, that's OXYHEALTH.com, and type in discount code HEALTHYDOC10 for your first order. How do you train the mind to be able to be in meditation without, and I know it's, and you talk about this in your book, not sort of calming your, like, because there's so many thoughts that run through our brain, right? Like we're all ADHD. Anyone who has an iPhone and has Instagram, you have ADHD. Yeah. I'm sorry to say. And I don't like labeling people, but we are all now ADHD. Yeah. And it's been forced upon us because we've lost the simple pleasures. I remember I'm Gen X, so I'd be playing in the playground. There were no phones. Yeah. Like, you see moms at playgrounds with kids and they're on their phones while their kids are playing because they're, nobody's
people
present.
Walking their dogs with their
walking
phones.
their dogs with their phones, going to bed with your phone. Yeah. It's become this, it is a problem. And because we're also into it, we're also knee deep into it now. It's hard to come out of it. So we need to retrain our brain to that meditation side. Yeah. Can you do both?
Yeah. Well, and you can, the beautiful thing about meditation is that it will naturally, without you having to even like try very hard, it will naturally start to change really like the shape of your brain, right? Which will then just make it easier to be present, right? So meditation creates less over time, less activity in your default mode network, which is a big part of that monkey mind, that ruminating, that let's think about the past, let's go into the future instead of just being here in this present. So when there's less activity happening there, it's easier to literally be here right now and not feel so, what am I doing with my life, right? Of course, habits and boundaries with a phone is great, but you'll feel that less of that kind of inclination to do that.
Right. Instead of forcing yourself to say, okay, I'm not going to go on my phone.
Yeah.
Right. It's like telling a kid,
Yeah.
you know, you can't eat that cookie.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to eat it more.
Right.
So it's more like making your brain trained to not want to go there.
Yeah. And I think it's also really important to acknowledge that unless you have something like a meditation practice, or you just happen to be naturally a very present person, we don't get a lot of reps just resting in the awareness of our mind, which, oh, by the way, is not always the nicest place to be. I don't know about you, but I have negative thoughts throughout the day all the time. It's really natural. Our mind is skewed negative. Most of our thoughts are negative. Naturally, the brain wants to look for what might go wrong so that it can keep us alive. That's physiologically what's happening, which is why so much of that is where our focus goes. But you can absolutely train yourself to not be quite so negatively skewed, number one. And when you are having anxious thoughts, when you are having fear-based thoughts, when you are ruminating a lot, the more that you practice something like meditation, the more comfortable it will be to just be able to notice those thoughts when they're happening, to be able to notice that wave of emotion when it's happening without needing to instantly escape it to feel better. That's really like the game changer, I think, that comes with meditation, the ability to rest in whatever is showing up for you emotionally and mentally without needing to numb yourself and without needing to fix something so that you feel better in that moment. Because thoughts are temporary. You don't have to believe every thought you have. Hot take. You don't have to believe every thought you have. Every thought does not need to become the next word you speak. Every thought does not need to be put in the driver's seat of your life. Your emotions are just temporary waves that come and go. Emotions last 90 seconds in the body. And then after that, it's your mind, which is just like the worst news ever, because we've all had emotions that have lasted for like an entire year. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right? But when you can practice the ability to just notice that thought that really isn't in alignment with what you want to be experiencing, when you have a big feeling that's super uncomfortable, being able to be this container that's just holding it and letting it pass through makes being in this present just infinitely more comfortable.
So how do we get started? Let's get started right now.
Yeah.
If we have everybody listening on the podcast right now, every single one, whether you're driving, whether you're having a cup of tea, which I hope you're doing instead of driving, because this is like more of a conversation where I want people to get cozy on a couch.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and really
whether you
down.
have a Nigma sheet mask on.
Yes.
Whether you
get a treatment mask on, get a vitamin C cocktail, do it all. Do all the wellnesses. Yes. How do we get started? Like right this minute, because it's something that you can do. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
And it's something accessible to you. I think people just want to know the tools.
Yeah.
So if we were to sort of hand feed or spoon feed somebody the tools, what would that be?
Should we just meditate for 60 seconds?
60 seconds.
Right now?
Could. Yeah, it's a long time.
30 seconds? 10 seconds.
10 seconds. For the podcast viewers, right? You know, we give them 60 seconds of silence. They're going to be like,
Checking out.
But I would like to do that. I do that on my own, but I'd love to do it with you.
Yeah. So whether you can close your eyes or not.
Okay.
Right? You can always do this if you're driving or walking a dog or whatever. If you can close your eyes.
Okay. It's better.
It's just easier because then it takes out the stimulus of what you're looking at.
Okay. So don't do this if you're driving.
Don't do this if you're driving. If you're not driving, you can close your eyes.
Okay.
And let's take a long, slow, deep breath in. Long, slow exhale out. And on this next inhale, you're going to silently count to 4 as you breathe in. You're going to hold that breath, silently count to 4. You're going to exhale out, silently count to 4. And then hold that breath at the bottom of that exhale for 4, once again. And then you can start breathing naturally again and open your eyes. So that was 16 seconds. I broke the rules. 16 seconds. Box breathing, 16-second breath. Yes. Without you having to do anything, without you having to try to stop thinking about anything else. Well, you can tell me, were you thinking about anything or were you just counting 1, 2, 3, 4?
No, I was just counting.
Right.
And it was, I do this all the time when I get anxious. But it was particularly needed in this podcast because I just did a podcast before you and it just cleared the air for me.
Yeah.
I felt like I cleared it, but it sealed the deal.
Yeah.
And it was 16 seconds.
Yeah. So you were focusing on two things. You were focusing on the sensation of your breath, which is always here, right? A lot of our mind is in the past or in the future. And in my experience, we're not obsessing over and ruminating over how great everything was or how great everything will be. We tend to get a little bit caught up in what didn't go well or what we feel maybe guilty about or what we would have done differently, or we're anticipating what might go wrong, right? No one's like up in the middle of the night thinking about how great their life is going to turn out, generally speaking. So your breath is always here, right? Your body's like, never thinking about the breath that happened last week.
Yes.
Right? Remember that great breath back in 2002? Like we really killed that breath, right? Your breath is always here in this present moment where you're okay.
Yes.
Right? And you were thinking the thought, quote unquote, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a neutral thought. Right? So you were giving your mind two things to anchor to: physical sensation in this present moment, and you were giving your mind what it wants, which is a thought. 1, 2, 3, 4. So especially if you're feeling anxious about something or worried about something, of course it's not helpful if I say to you, well, like, just stop thinking about it. Just don't go down that rabbit hole. Just think about something else, right? When people tell us that, you're like, thanks so much. You can go now. But you can just naturally redirect where your attention is, which is what we just did.
I love that. And it's such an easy thing to do wherever you are, except if you're driving.
Well, you can do it eyes open.
You can do it eyes open, because I do the box breathing when I'm driving sometimes when I want to reset the breathing. Yeah. Especially if I'm breathing too fast or I'm not, I'm holding my breath, which we all tend to do sometimes when we're stressed.
Yeah.
Megan,
your breath also, I will add one more thing.
Yes.
Your breath also, anytime you're manipulating the breath, it sends that message to your nervous system that you're safe.
Right.
Because if you were appropriately in a fight, flight, freeze, or stress response, you wouldn't be able to, right? If you were running for your life, God forbid, you wouldn't be able to be like, you know what, let me just calm this breath down because this is feeling stressful, right? Because you would be appropriately breathing to like
sympathetic
keep yourself
mode.
going.
Yes.
Exactly.
To get all the blood to rush to the muscles to run away from.
To run faster, fight harder, right? So anytime you can manipulate that breath, it also just subtly reminds your body like, oh, we're okay. Even if there's something stressful happening, we're not in mortal danger. Which sounds insane, but that's often what your nervous system thinks throughout the day.
Absolutely. You've been really open on Instagram about your diagnosis with MS. How did meditation help you get through that moment when you were first diagnosed? And even rewinding, before you were even diagnosed, did you know something was going on and you just couldn't figure out what it was?
Yeah. I think, all too common, and you know this, better than most, I had a lot of kind of autoimmune umbrella symptoms for probably a decade until there was enough of a symptom that caused testing and the right kind of testing and the right markers to show up in my blood work that confirmed a diagnosis. So I think, meditation has always been a part of my journey with navigating some chronic symptoms, which I'm so grateful for. And I can 100% say that if I hadn't been a meditator for, 14 years at the time of getting diagnosed, that my response to that diagnosis would have been incredibly different. And it really felt like I spent, 14 years building a muscle. Really, ironically and very synchronistically, building the muscles that I wrote about in my book, which are presence, acceptance, intention, non-judgment, and trust. And, it's ironic that I wrote this book in 2009. And then however many years later, I find myself in a moment where what I need more than anything else are these spiritual mindsets of presence, acceptance, intention, non-judgment, and trust. And, my response to being in the ER and having lost a lot of the vision in one of my eyes, which was the optic neuritis, the symptom that I had that caused me to get looked at. That day that I spent in the ER, I always say it was kind of like a Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm episode because just nothing was going right. My my boyfriend and my mom, who are like my two biggest support people in LA, were both a plane ride away. I showed up to the doctor, you know, in like it was August. I'm wearing like a sundress and sandals, and my phone was at 40%. I hadn't really eaten anything. I wasn't set up to go on this like medical adventure for the next 24 hours by any means. And yet I found myself sitting in the ER, you know, not wearing pants and not having a phone that I could just scroll and kind of distract myself. I joke that I kind of put myself unknowingly on this, you know, silent meditation retreat with a side order of food and water fasting. And I was sitting there for probably 10 hours waiting for an MRI, knowing that I was there because the ophthalmologist that I saw that day said, oh, what you have is optic neuritis, and that's often a sign of an MS flare-up. So I need you to go to the ER right now and get an MRI, sit there for as long as they need you to sit there, because you need to get this looked at immediately. And so that was in my head. It's not like I didn't know why I was sitting there. And yet, for all of those hours, for that entire day, in these less than ideal circumstances, I was calm and present and grateful for no reason. I remember thinking to myself, you know, I'm so grateful that I'm not worried about how much the parking is going to be here. Because like at a certain point in my life, I would have been like, shoot, how much is all day parking at UCLA? Like, is this going to be? Yeah. And I was like, I'm so grateful that I don't have to worry about that. I'm so grateful that random things showing up in my mind. I had thoughts like, maybe this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like maybe this is how I get to be of service to the world and share meditation with people that need it. And maybe this is the way that I get to fulfill a sense of purpose, which is what wakes me up. Just unhinged sort of thoughts that it wasn't coming from a place of, you know, let me try to be really positive. Let me try to have a good like attitude towards this.
That never works.
It was just naturally what my home base was. And of course I had moments where this feels really scary and I'm crying for 5 minutes. And I come back to that home base of like, wow, I'm okay. Like everything is okay, even though this thing does not feel okay necessarily, right? And so it was this really kind of sacred response, this spiritual response to this external source of stress that was really present, that was me being with all the waves that were coming and going, but naturally just having this place to land, which was gratitude, and I'm okay, and I'm grateful, and all is well somehow. And I say that with like so many grains of salt, with like a whole bucket of salt, because that would not have been my response pre-meditation. Pre-meditation, I would have been worried and freaking out and trying to call everybody that I possibly could to tell them what was happening. It would have been a very external, stressed, afraid reaction rather than a response.
True wellness lives in the smallest details: the air you breathe, the water you wash with, and the surfaces you touch. That's why Koala Eco, with their beautiful botanical ranges for home, laundry, body, and even pets, is the only brand I trust. Elegant living without compromise. Visit koalaeco.com, that's KOALAECO.com, and use my code HEALTHYDOG15 for 15% off your first order. Does false positivity work sometimes too? I mean, I said it never works because I feel like truly, if you're just saying it, I mean, sometimes you can say things, fake it to make it, right? But I really feel like there's the meditation is really the true positivity, because it's your most authentic self in a state where your body is truly calm. Yeah. And you know, the mind is so powerful, it can tell disease where to go. Yeah. It can tell disease to leave the body. Yeah. And we've seen a lot of research emulate that.
Yeah. I think it's really important, to your point, to get to a place of embodiment where you're not just thinking it, but you're being it.
I think that's the key.
I think that's ultimately the key. In the beginning stages, if you're, you know, my mindset pre-meditation was very very like New Yorker, very jaded, very sort of pessimistic, very let me look at why things are going wrong, like very victim-y. Of course, this is happening to me. Why wouldn't this happen to me? And that 100% would have been how I navigated this diagnosis. And it would have been a very different experience for myself and for everyone around me. So in the journey of kind of shifting how you view reality, your set point, the glasses that you subjectively experience the world through, of course, you have to practice thinking new things. You have to practice looking for evidence of new things, right? I always say to people, your brain, your mind is like a Netflix algorithm. So the more thoughts you have, the more content, quote unquote, you're watching in your mind, the more that's going to be suggested to you, right? So there's a part of your brain called your reticular activating system that's really there to give you the content that you favor. So if all day you're thinking to yourself, there are no nice people in the world. Everyone's awful. Everyone's out to get you. You can't trust anybody. Your mind is like, oh, great. You love that show. And it will literally
just play that show
around you.
Yes.
Look for anything that matches.
Any clues.
It's literally not, Netflix when it's like suggested content.
Right. When you've just seen a movie and it gives you something, another horror movie.
You have a bad day. We all had one during the pandemic where we watched a murder show and all of a sudden Netflix is like, you love murder. I got you. Here you go. And it's like diary of a, serial killer and homicide and murder and death.
That's all you're watching.
And it's feeding you that because you favored it.
But not only that, but, it feeds you that, but you also then attract that.
Well, that's what you literally in life, if we're leaving the metaphor, you look for quote unquote evidence of that and you see it. So you experience, wow, I'm experiencing all of this evidence that I can't trust people, that there's no nice people, that everyone's taking advantage of you. So that just affirms that belief that you have.
System, yes. But you also vibrate on a certain level
of course,
that then you come into contact with all the people that are, in the same, if you're not trusting, you're going to vibrate on the same light and the same train as those people. Yeah. And, all of us want certainty and a lot of us have had betrayal. Yeah. People have not been of their word and truth, and for me, it's so important for certainty and people to be of their word and integrity. And I was just interviewing a wonderful guest today and we were talking about that and how, our need to have certainty is based on our previous experience.
Right.
And then when you get into that, what we call flow state that you mentioned, it becomes less important.
Right.
And you're more into that flow. Yeah. And you're more into the acceptance of people running late if they're late. You don't look at that as, I can't trust that person. Right. You're more in the flow state rather than in the rigid attachment. Uncertain attachment style.
Well, because as you start to meditate, and again, how we started this conversation, rest within yourself first and foremost, and have that be your home base, you develop, one of my favorite words, more equanimity. So this ability to have an internal home base that's, I'm not going to say completely unable to be threatened, but much less threatened by the external, which is why when you have a wave of uncertainty, like getting an unexpected MS diagnosis, that inner world doesn't get rocked that much. The external might be falling apart and moving around and falling to pieces in ways that you didn't want it to, but that internal world is good.
I think this is a really important piece because there's a lot of people out there that are getting diagnosed with more and more disease. Like cancer is on the rise, heart disease is on the rise. And I feel like this is a really important piece for people who are listening who have just been diagnosed with something, whether it's PCOS, whether it's, perimenopause, or they've hit menopause, or they've had an MS diagnosis or a cancer diagnosis. Walk us through how, give that person that's listening right now, what can they do to manage that when they're just hearing about it? Because you've lived it and there's no one better than you to help someone walk through that.
Yeah. I think the ability to be with where you're at in the moment and to stay in the moment. And whether that's, I'm having a really rough day, or I just got diagnosed and this feels so scary and all I want to do is think about what's going to happen to me and what my life might look like and what will my outcome of a treatment be, right? Depending on what you're navigating.
Like people would go right to Google, right? They'd start Googling their diagnosis, freaking out. That's what a lot of my patients will do before they come to see me.
Yeah.
And so what should they do? Like, should they be looking for facts on this? Should they sit with it? Like, what's some good advice?
I think it's, like meditation, obviously, like spoiler alert. I don't mean to like bury the lead, but no, it's meditation, right?
Is a medication.
Exactly. Having practices where you can be with yourself no matter what that self in that moment feels like. So meditation, isn't always, let me just be quiet and sit with my thoughts. Sometimes it's breathing really consciously. Sometimes I do a ton of like somatic shaking, which is literally just like shaking your body.
What dogs do.
Well, 100%, right? So humans are uniquely, they find this actually sometimes with animals in captivity, that sometimes that kind of instinctive, it's really a way to metabolize stress and metabolize the flood of things that happen when your body goes into a stress response. But humans uniquely don't do that automatically. And we get into our head and we bypass what's happening in the moment and we immediately start going into what we're thinking about. I always say like feelings are meant to be felt, not fixed. So don't stop thinking about your feelings and just feel your feelings. Be with your feeling. Whether that's shaking for 90 seconds, whether that's breathing, whether that's journaling, whether that's maybe just meditating and letting it be what it is. But I think finding your access points to that self-regulation and developing the tools for that, which again, meditation, shaking, journaling, breath will always help. I think the other thing with meditation when it comes to certainly a chronic disease, but really anything, is that it doesn't have to become who you are. Depending on the symptoms that you're experiencing, that can be like a tall order, and I do recognize that. But even the way you use language, right? So I'm experiencing MS. I am not my MS.
You are not your
I'm
disease.
not defined by my MS. I experience MS right now.
You're not the disease. You're experiencing.
That is not who I am.
Exactly.
It's something that I'm experiencing. Even something way less intense, right? There's a big difference between, I'm so stressed and I'm feeling so stressed.
It's better language.
Right? You are not your stress. You are experiencing this symptom. And then the last piece that comes with really a meditation practice and this topic is really being able to develop a growth mindset around it. It's one of the biggest things that we see in the difference between PTSD and something called PTG, which is post-traumatic growth, which is kind of the other end of the spectrum when it comes to actually benefiting, quote unquote, or growing from what you go through. Aside from navigating your body and changing its relationship to stress so you don't go into it as quickly. Meditation, changing your relationship with your feelings, remembering that they're not going to last forever, that they're 90 seconds if you let it just be with your body. The third thing that's really powerful is developing that growth mindset where you can say, I wouldn't have chosen this. I wouldn't have chosen MS. If someone was like, here's a life menu, it's a la carte, like, what do you want? I wouldn't be like, you know what, leave the like abundance and the great opportunities and the great relationship. I'll take that MS, like with a side order of like my phone's dead the day that it's right.
Yes.
Of course, you're not going to choose that. But I can absolutely say, MS included, that the parts of me and the parts of my life that I am the most thankful for, that I am the most proud of, have come from things that I never would have chosen. Like truly. That I never would have chosen. The things that we navigate that are the dark nights of the soul, that's where you discover who you are. That's where you discover like who you're made of. That's where you discover what it is that you want. And maybe a diagnosis gives you the courage,
the silver lining,
to say, you know what, like I deserve the life I want. And what is that? And I'm going to stop BSing my way through this like deluded life and like live life to the fullest, right? So
it's also a silver lining in a way because...
Well, it's being open to, amidst there being a ton of stuff that is not enjoyable, that you never would have chosen, it's also being open to what is here that is nectar. And I say all the time to people, you have the ability to choose how a life-changing moment changes your life. And absolutely, it can be the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And that can be the story forever. Or it can be, wow, I didn't want that. I didn't expect it. It's been really hard and painful. And I'm so much stronger in these ways.
But the fact that you thought about when you were sitting in the hospital about how you could help other people in the world.
I had to like rein it in. I was literally, I mean, I didn't have a phone to use, so that's part of it. But I was sitting there like, I could do a whole series on this and maybe this should be a thing. And then I was like, you need to be in your moment and not go too far. Well, that's the other thing with, meditation is that it's really hard to have a practice like that and not start to feel more connected to purpose. And
that's
why you're
exactly
here, who you are and why you're here. And what you can uniquely share with the world.
And I think that's so important. I think we miss that, of why we're here and what our purpose is. I think a lot of the time society, the worst health habit in society is loneliness.
Yeah.
And it's not contributing to society, not having a purpose is way worse. And I don't know if you saw the recent Harvard study that said that relationships and community is what lengthens life or what makes people live long, healthy lives. And that's the biggest longevity hack is just that.
Yeah.
And I think it begins with yourself. We always hear this saying, put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then you can assist others.
Yeah.
And it's the best analogy because it's how we get into ourself and we work on ourselves through meditation. We are able to help so many people.
Yeah. Well, and if you're not connected to who you are through something like meditation, heavy sell on meditation, if you can't tell.
Heavy sell,
unapologetic. If you're not connected to who you are, you can't really authentically share who you are.
This is true.
And if you're not connected to humanity and others, then there's nothing of you to share from that place of purpose, right? So it really is like a twofold benefit, if you will. And I think that's the other thing too. When you're navigating hardship, whatever it might be, it really is such an opportunity to invite connection. I've really been confronted with all of I don't like to ask for help. I can do it on my own. And even in looking back at how I navigated, that day that I was getting diagnosed, there are so many people that would have come to UCLA ER. You would have brought me a phone charger. If I was like, hey, Nigma, I'm in the ER, my core people are out of town. I'm getting diagnosed with MS maybe. Can you bring me like pants and a phone charger? You would have been like, yeah, 100%. Like, I'll bring you.
I would have brought you all sorts of things. I would have brought you wellness.
Here's a mask.
Treatment mask, vitamin C. What else do you need? Yeah, it's.
Right. So like, even though I wouldn't change that day and so much good came out of it, I was able to look back through this lens and say, wow, I get to ask people for help.
It's super important
and that's
to ask
such a
people
gift.
for help.
And that's such a gift, right? So that's, again, like even these things that we navigate that are really hard, they open up access points to so much good.
And what people don't realize is that, people think that they're putting people out when they're asking for help.
Yeah.
And I've learned that people love helping.
Yeah.
And if you don't ask somebody for help, they're also benefiting by helping because it gives them a purpose. It gives them a community. And
that giving and receiving is so important.
Receiving and giving is so important. And I think we have a hard time with receiving. Healthcare practitioners, meditation, all of us in this wellness world, we have a hard time receiving. But now I'm in my 50s. I'm really, really like open to receiving.
Give it all.
I'm like, can you help me with this? And I don't normally do that.
Yeah.
And I've learned that in life now, if you ask for help, you shall receive. And it's good for both parties.
Yeah.
It's an energy flow.
Yeah. And it does have to be this flow, right? The energy can't be stagnant, whether it's love or money or how, like, it can't be stagnant. So I think a key part of what you're talking about, especially with loneliness, is giving yourself permission to give and receive.
Absolutely.
From PMS to perimenopause to menopause to postmenopause, I've lived through it all. And through every stage, one thing becomes clear: Hormone fluctuations change how our bodies regulate temperature, especially at night. When your body overheats, even slightly, it disrupts deep, restorative sleep. The kind of sleep your hormones, metabolism, and mood depend on. That's why I can't live without my Rani Lounge pajamas. Their advanced technology activates natural fibers, making the fabric moisture resistant, naturally fresh, and ultra breathable, allowing your body to stay cool and regulate temperature the way nature intended. Better temperature control means deeper sleep, better recovery, and a body that feels truly at ease. Whether at home or traveling, staying cool, fresh, and comfortable has never felt so effortless. Go to RaniLounge.com, that's RaniLounge.com, and use my code HealthyDog15 and get 15% off your first order and experience sleep the way it was meant to be.
People have a lot of misconceptions about meditation. Okay, so what are some of the myths around meditation? I know one of them is going to be you have to switch off your thoughts.
I can't stop my thoughts, Megan. I've tried so hard. I just can't do it. I've tried meditation. I can't do it. I have so many thoughts. Yes. I hear it almost every day.
And
blows my mind.
You know, but it's a relevant question because it's like we think when we meditate that everything has to be still. And I think it stops a lot of people from wanting to do it because it's impossible to stop our thoughts, you know?
Well, yeah. And it's not, I don't know who said it. I don't know who said it the first time or what, like, who just uttered those words. It's time to silence our mind. No one's doing that. No one's silencing their mind. No one is emptying their mind and void of thought in meditation. If anything, especially for the first few minutes of meditation, your mind is probably going to feel way busier because you're actually paying attention to it, right? So 100% biggest myth, meditation is not about stopping your thoughts. It does, if you do it for kind of long enough, for more than, 5-6 minutes, you will probably notice a slowing down where it feels less like turbulent, less like thought, but no one is stopping their thoughts in meditation. So everyone gets to put that down and recognize that that's not going to be your experience. I think the other thing that I hear a lot, which, is a little bit less defined, I think, in what I hear normally from people, but it's this idea of like, oh, that was a really good meditation, right? Or I don't think that was a very good one. I was thinking a lot. I don't think, and so when my clients, say that, I'm like, listen, a good meditation, quote unquote, for you might feel like the meditations where it feels really peaceful or where you have some download about yourself or right? Those are really enjoyable and fun and can be really meaningful. But that meditation is just as good as the meditation where there's a leaf blower and all you're thinking about is how much you wish they would turn that leaf blower off. They're equally beneficial, right? There's no better or worse. As long as you're meditating, you're having good meditations. And really the benefit of you sitting and meditating for however long it is showing up in the rest of your day. As much as there are things from like a physiological perspective that are happening that are really beneficial in that moment, most of the benefit that you're going to see is going to happen in the rest of your day, not when you're meditating. So think of it like a workout, right? We've all had those workouts where, I know you started weight training, so you'll get this. We all have those workouts where we start doing the thing and you're like, oh my gosh, am I the strongest woman in the world? Like I'm such a badass. I could do this for hours. Like I could run for days. Give me a heavier weight. Like what are we doing
Bring it
here? And then we have workouts where I'm like, I've never moved my body in my life. I feel like I'm wearing like a cement bodysuit. I don't know what's happening, but it feels like I've never done this before. And this is the worst thing
like a
I've ever
hair
experienced.
Day.
Yes.
Bad hair day by month.
Yes.
We have bad days.
We have days where it feels easier and days where it feels harder.
That's a better way of saying it. I like that.
You like that reframe?
I like that reframe, Megan.
But both of those workouts that you did are equally beneficial.
Right.
You just enjoyed one more. So really let go of the idea that meditation needs to feel like something in order for it to work. And think of it like the workout. Think of it like a mental workout. I tell people all the time, it's a mental workout. It's building these muscles of awareness, these muscles to be more present, to be more in a flow, flexible, grace-filled state of acceptance, right? It's building these muscles. That's what you're doing. And it doesn't matter what the workout feels like.
Which brings me to my next question then. I know for, the way I grew up, we start meditating at 4 a.m.
Yes.
Which is...
For your sadhana.
Yeah.
Good girl.
Well, it was in my family and my parents would wake up to meditate and, we would meditate at that time. And it was just, I would fall asleep most of the time as a kid, but it was very relaxing.
Yeah.
And when I do it now, it really sets me up for an amazing day. Because what I'll do is I'll meditate.
Yep.
I'll wake up to meditate, and then I'll go back to sleep and then set my alarm.
Yeah.
Because I find that second sleep that I have
is better.
after I meditate is better than even the first half. And then sometimes I'll just sleep through it because I know I'll only do it if I wake up.
Right.
So it almost like my body clock wakes me up to do it. But I also will do meditation at different times of the day. So my question to you as a meditation queen, what would be the best time for people to meditate?
So the best time is whenever you do it. Like, just do it, right? And
Sounded like a Nike commercial.
it did, right? A little bit. And you can pay me later, Nike.
Yes,
You're
exactly.
welcome. And there are times of day that make it easier to meditate and that will, to your point, kind of set you up for the day. So 100%, I was taught meditate when you wake up. So wake up, go to the bathroom, wash your face, do whatever you need to do, have a glass of water, and then sit down and meditate. It really is priming you for the day and bringing you into a place of awareness and presence and bringing in some intention if you want for the rest of your day. If that doesn't happen, are you still going to be okay and be able to meditate later? 100%. But doing it in that morning moment, also from a success perspective and a consistency perspective, the earlier you can put it into that first kind of 8 to 12 things that you do every morning, no matter how late you're running, no matter how late I'm running, I always make my iced matcha. And I always, we take a shower, we always brush our teeth, we always do all of those things.
Yeah.
So the earlier you can put it in that first block of activity, the more successful and consistent you probably will be, especially in the beginning, because there aren't as many things to get in the way of you doing it. We've all done the I'm going to work out later. I'm going to work out. I didn't get a chance to work out this morning. I'm going to do it at 2. And then 2 rolls around and you're like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. Or, oh, something else came up. And then we're like, oh, I'm going to work out at 6. And you're like, oh, well, I got invited to that birthday dinner. I'm not going to do it at 6. I'll do it. And then you don't do it. Right. So the earlier you can put it in, the more success and consistency you'll probably have.
Okay, so give us that. Say we say to somebody that's listening, they're going to start meditating when they wake up in the morning. They're going to do that instead of going on their iPhone and scrolling on Instagram or their phone, whatever phone they have, or TV or whatever it is you do. Before you do anything, you're going to meditate. What does that meditation look like?
I mean, it can be a lot of things. I, have a really great, I will just plug it because that's where we're here to get everyone meditating. I have a really easy 21-day meditation series online.
Okay.
So if you want easy work, do something like that. Or there are meditations online that you can literally press play on and just listen to them. If you are wanting to be a little bit more autonomous with your practice, you can easily just set an alarm. 10 minutes, 15 minutes would be great.
And what are they doing during this time?
Yeah. So one of the really easy kind of practices that I always give people is to use the mantra so hum, which kind of distills down to the essence I am. And you can link it with your breath. As you breathe in, silently repeat so. As you breathe out, silently repeat hum. So
breathe
hum.
In.
Breathe in so, breathe out hum, silently repeating it. And you'll do that until the timer goes off, knowing that your mind is going to drift and you're going to be like, oh, should I have matcha or coffee? I think I should probably do matcha because it's better for you. It has all those antioxidants, but coffee's so good. I bet if I got a different kind of coffee, maybe that one that has minerals in it and electrolytes, maybe that would be good. I should probably get it tested though, because maybe I have an intolerance to that. Or maybe my body doesn't even like matcha, because that could be a thing.
You're
and maybe
so
it's
LA, Megan.
I know, right? I'm I didn't have matcha this morning. Can you tell? But no, but that's what will happen. And your mind will go to that flurry of thoughts, right? That's what meditation is sometimes.
Yes.
It's that thought. When that happens, notice that you've drifted into thinking about matcha versus coffee and be like, oh, right, we're meditating, and come back to that mantra. And you'll drift away again. And then you'll come back to the mantra. And then all of that is your meditation. And every time you drift away and come back, it's like doing a mental rep and really building this muscle to be able to notice where your mind is.
Do you put an alarm on your meditation of how long you're meditating, or do you?
Yeah, I would, if you're not used to, I've done meditation, I've led thousands. So my internal clock for 20 minutes is pretty dialed in. But yeah, if you are not meditating multiple times a day, like me for 16 years, then yes, set a timer. There's an app called Insight Timer that has really lovely like gongs and things. So you're not using some terrible regular alarm sound.
I started changing my meditation time at night, at bedtime, because that's the time where I really want to scroll on Instagram and know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I've now banned myself from doing that. And I meditate, which is lying in bed and meditating, because then if I fall asleep, it's fine.
Of course, yeah.
I don't have to like set an alarm or do any of that kind of stuff. So that's been working for me.
Yeah, I have a lot of clients that I practice something called yoga nidra, which is this really lovely sort of guided lucid dreaming, and you can use it to fall asleep and still get the benefits. So I always tell people using mantra, you don't want to use mantra, let me say, to fall asleep, because then you'll associate it with falling asleep. So using mantra for like daytime or evening, and then if you want to use something to fall asleep, there are a plethora of practices that you can use for that, including yoga nidra, which I love.
I love that. I think that's some really good tools to help our listeners who are just, I find guided meditations are a really good start.
Yeah.
Because once you start...
It's hard. As much as it doesn't sound hard, just like set an alarm and say so hum to yourself. It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
I try to do it while I'm sitting here and it's hard.
Yeah.
I have my own little mantras that, I grew up with.
Well, you've been doing this for
a long
years,
time.
yeah.
So I've got those mantras that I really love, but I can imagine somebody who's never meditated, somebody who has trouble in stillness and, it's hard.
Yeah.
But I feel like you said, it's muscle. It's like when you start lifting weights, it's hard.
And to your point, it's easier to do a workout when you go to a class or when you have a trainer than it is to just sit in your home and do something new that you've never done that's uncomfortable.
What about meditation classes? Because I think I really love going to meditation classes because I feel like there's a power of community, there's a power of energy. What about meditation classes?
Yeah. I mean, depending on where you are, if you live in LA or New York, there are studios. I have taught at Unplug meditation in LA and since they opened. So I still do one virtual class with them on Sunday mornings. That, I love to teach. But yeah, if there's somewhere in your community, absolutely.
And they can even go online and do a meditation class. Yeah. I think our social media and those things that are, the ability to do classes like that. And, I think that's a real plus.
Even a lot of gyms now will have
meditation classes. Yeah. I think it should be part of the school curriculum, if I'm honest, because I feel like, I know they looked at children who did meditation in their schools and their schools, their children were less likely to have violence and agitation and, even having animals in the school, like dogs. And so dogs and meditation, that's what calms me down.
Yeah. I teach, I work with a lot of kids and it's remarkable how fast they pick up on.
They're less jaded than
all
we are.
of it. It's why they're so fast and there's no resistance to any of it, to being more present, to letting go of whatever. So it's an incredible thing for kids.
No, I agree. And I think it should, like I said, be in the school curriculum.
I've built my entire clinical philosophy and even wrote a book called Younger Skin Starts in the Gut around one simple truth. If your gut isn't optimal, nothing else works. Genova Diagnostics GI Effects test is the gold standard in functional stool testing, mapping your microbiome, digestion, inflammation, and nutrient absorption with clinical precision. It's a crappy job, but someone has to do it. And no one does it better than Genova. Visit genovaconnect.com and use my code HEALTHYDOC15 for 15% off your first stool test.
The book Don't Hate, Meditate. Why Don't Hate? What did you come up with that from?
My publisher renamed it, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Yeah, I wasn't.
But I kind of like it.
It's a great title. No, we were kind of kicking around and they said, what do you think about this? I said, I like that. I think, it rhymes.
Yeah.
That's why. That's why it's called that. But I think if we take it deeper into like the meaning of it, right? It's, and I guess transparently, I will say pre-meditation, again, I was much more in that viewpoint of pessimist and a little jaded and just self-deprecating. And I used to wake up a lot of days in a very sarcastic way and just kind of say to myself like, ugh, I hate my life. Like, what are we doing? Like, I hate my life right now. And I'm like, I don't like my job and I'm stressed. I hate my life. And, that's not an empowering thing to say, especially in the morning when you wake up. But I think it's easy to look around and be like, ugh, I hate that, or ugh, I hate that. And I really do think meditation is the access point to shifting how you're seeing the world and how you're experiencing your reality. And it can be one of love and gratitude.
Mm-hmm. It really can. I read something in your book, and it just stuck with me. What might happen if we all kept waking up and didn't go back to sleep after the moment of awakening happened? That is beautiful.
And it's so, it's so easy. I think I say it in the book, like to press the snooze button on your consciousness. Mm-hmm. It's easier to be numb and to kind of move through the world on autopilot. It's not as enjoyable, but it doesn't require that much of you. So the moment that you wake up, and like, spoiler alert, if you're listening to this podcast episode, like, you have woken up a bit more, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you embrace that and resist the urge to like press the snooze button on your awareness, just everything becomes available to you.
Brilliant. And I also love this one. How you see your present is what dictates your future. Mm-hmm. It is. And in that MS diagnosis,
yep,
I really felt like, whenever we talk about this, and we've talked about this before because we've been, we've traveled together, we've done like events together, and it's so beautiful because I feel like anyone listening to this can really relate. And it really is. There is such an amazing ability to be in the present moment, and whatever you're thinking in the present is what your future is going to be. That whole MS diagnosis could have gone wrong.
Yeah.
But you made it become something different, and it's evolved. And, how are you doing now? Like, how are your, we were talking about your diagnosis, but I want to know about, how do you feel today?
I feel good. I mean, I'm so grateful for the place that I'm at physically in my health, and, mentally it continues to be a thing that I grow from and like grow through, truly. So
what are your wellness hacks at the moment for your, just with your diagnosis, not with your diagnosis? What are you doing?
So this is not at all medically centered, but I will tell you that the things that have changed my life in the last almost year now are prioritizing my joy and doing things for the sake of my own like joy and like zest for life. So I started taking horseback riding lessons, and I started singing in a choir. And both of these two things, I think it's so important and really not prescribed.
Were you soprano?
Not prescribed nearly enough. No, I'm an alto.
You're an alto? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Alto, sometimes alto too. Having things in your life that remind you of who you are, where you are using your gifts without any element of productivity or like marker for success, or like doing things and using your gifts and leaning into the things that bring you joy just for the sake of your own joy is, I can't even tell you what it does to like the brain. Because so much of life is, what are you doing and what's the result and what's the goal and like what are you getting from it and what's the ROI? And there's something really like truly profound when you start to do something just for the sake of your own joy, whether that's coloring or going for a walk or riding a horse or joining a choir or being in a like local play, whatever it is that lights you up, and really giving yourself the gift of your own gifts. That's, I mean, and there's so many, I think, layers to that. And, it's you prioritizing yourself and giving yourself time. If you're, I pay for horseback riding lessons, so it's investing in something that's just for my own joy, right? So there are so many things about that it's so simple, but it really does combat the parts of our mind that I think certainly in this world right now is so like masculine and like data driven and results oriented and what's the ROI and where are you going and how, like that very, I don't know, that very like rigid energy that we can get into sometimes. And so doing something for the exact opposite reason is like kind of rebellious if you are someone that tends to lean into that world of the alternative.
Absolutely. And I think the more you give yourself, we hear that word self-love, the more your body will love you back, right? It'll do the things it needs to do.
Yeah, it's being like, oh, you matter.
Yes.
Right. So every time I take time away from everything else in my life to go do this thing just for me, I'm like telling my body, like, you matter to me.
Yeah. And your cells are thanking you.
Exactly.
They're like, thank you, Megan, for loving me enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll heal better. I'll regenerate better. And I mean, because we always think about doing the thing,
right?
You know, taking the antioxidants and doing those
and all that's
important.
Great. All the therapies, I do so many things. I take so many things. Like, just so we're clear, I drink all the water. Like, I don't do a whole host of things because that isn't going to be good for my body. And all of that is so important. And that's why people like you and everything that you share is so vital. And also there's something really like profound about also just giving yourself the gift of joy.
Yes.
And not having to like earn it, but just because you exist.
Yes. And can we talk about one more thing that we both do?
Yeah.
It's the hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah.
I mean, that chamber, I originally got it for Dante because he was suffering from irritable bowel disease. Yeah, obviously, always get it for someone else, right? But I would have to go in with him. And I really noticed a difference from mild hyperbaric oxygen.
Yeah.
And I know now, you and I talked about it, and I said, you should get one. And you were like, yes. And it really shows how, you know, you listen to your intuition, you're taking care of your body.
Yeah.
And the most, you know, not all of us take care of our bodies like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes the diagnosis makes you or forces you to take care of yourself more.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've seen in that therapy is the brain fog.
With the hyperbaric oxygen,
I think that it's really helped that in a very acute way. Obviously, like long-term benefits will be seen. But yeah, I mean, I think right now it's the best thing about like biohacking is that we do have access to so many different red lights and all sorts of lights and saunas and infrared things and cold things. And, you know, I don't do all of those things, but
no, me neither.
But there's
no cold plunging for me.
Yeah, I don't do cold plunging. But we have access to so much now that's data driven and science backed. And it's really cool that we're at a time where we can really optimize things and where we can use a lot of modalities other than just mainstream medicine. Not that there's not a place for that, because I absolutely believe that there is, but it's amazing that we're in a place where we can play in all these other spaces too.
No, it's like me in a candy store. I wanted to ask you one last question, Megan.
Yeah.
What is, and you know all the love languages, what is your love language?
My gosh, you know, it's really interesting.
Has it changed over time?
It's totally changed.
Mine did too.
Yeah, it's totally changed. And where it's changed has been directly influenced by me doing work on my own self-worth. And now where there is less of a need for a gift, let's say. I used to be a big gift giver and loved receiving a gift. Okay. And I still love giving gifts, don't get me wrong. And you can send everyone I'll take gifts whenever you want to send them to me. But I would
Let's make that clear, everyone.
I want to make that really clear, universe. Like, send me all the things. I love like nice gift wrapping, like just so we're clear. But what I really value is time and like presence. Like that is like my number one. If you can be with me and be present and like just drop in with me like this in a conversation, that is my number one love language. So it's not just like time, but it's like deep presence on both sides. And that doesn't mean we have to be even talking, but deep presence is my love language.
I love that. And mine too have changed. And it's interesting. The time has become, I think, so important because we're also fixated. Even when we're with our friends, we're on our phones. So I've had friends have to tell me off for being on my phone so much. And I appreciate that because, you know, that's their love language.
Yeah.
And so, and that's really interesting, that time. Yeah. Okay. What's the second
I think the second one is probably still affection.
Touch.
Yeah. I like physical touch.
You like physical touch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like physical touch.
I love that. Dante, get over there.
I know.
I'm going to give you a nice hug. But so I have something to give you. It's a gift.
Oh my God, it worked. Master manifester.
You're such a master manifester, Megan. It's you know, it's a gift, but it's also act of service. And I'm gonna be present with you.
Yeah.
And show you how to do this.
I love it.
It's
I'm
a
so
stool
excited.
test from Genova Diagnostics.
Oh my gosh.
Genova is one of the sponsors of the podcast. They're one of the people that really believed in what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I have used them religiously for 20 years in practice.
That's amazing.
And have helped thousands of patients because the root cause of illness is from your gut.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what anybody says, everything starts in the gut. Healthy skin, autoimmune disease, everything is in the gut. So I always like to give this.
Brain.
It's a second brain. I always want to give this as a gift to people that I love and people that, are part of my community. My patients have to do this. Every patient that I have ever had has done this test. So it's a stool test. It's a 3-day stool test.
Great.
We can combine it into 2 because we can shift it into 2 days and we can talk. And you're collecting into these tubes and it measures all the good bacteria, all the bad bacteria, how you're digesting, how you're absorbing. And you get a consultation with me once the results come back.
Dream.
And we put together a plan
Dream gift.
for your gut microbiome, which will influence your overall health and wellness.
Thank you, love. That's like literally the best gift. That's what happens when you're like obsessed with health. I'm like, oh my God, will you check my poop? This is like the best day ever.
Listen, and I'm now known as a poop doctor, so I might as well,
lean into it.
Lean into it. It's a crappy
girl.
job, but someone's got to do it, and I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for being
so
on the
much, love.
podcast, Megan. Where can people find you if they want to do more of your classes or get your book?
You can spiritually slide into my DMs anytime. It's at Meg Monahan. You can email me.
How do you spell that?
Meg Monahan, MEGMONAHAN. You can email me. It's just Megan at meganmonahan.com. Buy a book. Do that 21-day guided meditation series. It's so like accessible and such an easy place to start. But yeah, I'm here to help.
Don't hate, meditate. I love that. Megan, thank you so much for being on the
Thanks
Healthy
for
Dog
having
podcast.
me.
This was so much fun. I've learned so much. Thank you.
Thanks.